all of this is so subtle and it takes
Yes,
so long to actually grow in your own capacity to even notice all these things.
I am with Roxy Archer, who is a therapist, counselor with two L's, and
In
we're going to have a
Canada.
conversation
Yeah.
in Canada, and we're going to have a conversation about control. You had mentioned something about control, and it just sounded compelling. It sounded like you were really wrestling with it, and it sounded like a fun topic of conversation. We're kind of talking about this in a quote therapy context, but I'm really interested in this conversation also much more broadly in terms of like how do we try to exert control in relationships, in life? Like what does it mean to give up control? What are the psychological dynamics of that? So I think that the world of therapy is kind of a real like microcosm to study around our impulses towards control. I'm interested in it in a much broader context than just therapy.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that's the starting point that I'm thinking of.
Hmm.
So do you recall what the moment was when you mentioned that to me?
I don't know if I used the word control, but I think I used the word uncertainty. And then um, I think I don't totally remember the conversation. It was like a long time ago, but I do remember feeling like, and I still am, but I was really wrestling with um, like tolerating ambiguity and noticing my own propensity to want to control it, want to manage it, um, and and how that impacts my work with as a therapist counselor, uh, and and it pulls me away from connection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, and it does that in real life too. But so I think that's the context of it. Does that sound familiar to you?
That's good. Yeah, that's a good yeah, I think I kind of interpreted it a little bit, but yeah. Yeah, uncertainty. What happens for you internally, like when you're sitting with the client and you're like, I don't know what's going on, I don't know what to do.
I think there's this things should happen, sort of this
Mm-hmm.
expectation that um, things should go somewhere. That
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just actually sitting in ambiguity means we're stuck, which is
Mm-hmm.
funny because so much of what people come in and want to talk about is feeling stuck. And
Mm-hmm.
so much of what sometimes like I'm doing with people is sort of like tolerating the sensation of stuck because that's actually what helps get them unstuck. And then I just also noticed that there's also this like part of me that is intolerant of the stuckness.
Can you just say a little more about what's intolerable about it? Like what happens? Or I could try to answer that question too, if you want.
Yeah, what well, you go ahead first.
Okay. So I haven't reflected on this really at all,
Hmm.
so I'm just totally going to freestyle it here. But um, I think, well, particularly in the role when somebody's paying me, I think I feel the pressure they're putting on themselves too. Like, I don't want to be stuck. I don't want to be confused. I don't like ambiguity. So I'm here paying you. Fix it.
Hmm.
And I feel that pressure.
Hmm.
And I think, well, maybe it's some pressure just to perform. Like they're paying me, so I should give them some product or something.
Hmm.
But I also think it's like I can see they're kind of struggling. And so then I'm like, wow, well, I guess I should do something. Uh, Even though I don't know what to do in some cases. And then what else happens? I think too, if I really check in, I think some of my anxiety is actually just around relational connection. Like, if they feel ambiguous to me, I can't locate them. I can't kind of get a grip on where they're at And then that makes me feel a little bit anxious, like, wait, what's going on in the relationship? I don't know what's happening with this person. You know, so I would say any or all of those things happen for me in terms of like the negative feelings. And then if I were to say what's positive about it, it depends on like kind of my own state, but there's another state too, which is like, oh, this is kind of fun, or let's play with this. You know, what do you notice in your body when you feel stuck? Or you want to do this and you want to do that. Let's have a conversation between those parts. Or so there's kind of a playfulness that can happen in that space too. But I think it depends on how anxious the person is that I'm working with. Like if they feel really demanding, like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm paying you. Aren't you the one that's supposed to have the solutions or something? Then I feel more kind of pressure about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how it also shows up differently with different people, for sure. But also in different contexts. Like, so recently I've been leading a little process group with another therapist, and the other therapist is more experienced than I am, and they are much more. Well, at least we had this debrief about it, but they seem much more comfortable, sort of like with the emerging nature of what the group is. But I think because it's my first time leading it, there's so much anxiety in me in the lulls. And there's a lot of lulls in the group, which isn't my nature. My nature is to fill in the space a lot more. And so I noticed that I was sort of agitating the group, like trying to stir the pot in a way that this other therapist sort of questioned me about later, like what was going on there, like what were you feeling as you were doing that. And so next week later, I just named to the group that I noticed my own anxiety with the ambiguity and feeling like the desire for people to get something out of it. So the feedback from the participants was, I can't believe you think that. Like, we're getting so much out of this group. But so it's this internalized experience of this internalized pressure that actually pulled me away from really being present to like the good that is actually occurring for them.
That's good. I like that. Yeah. So there's the first kind of like, I guess, learning point for me, which is that part of the antidote to this is to actually to notice that what we're doing is actually useful. Like that control impulse might be kind of calmed down a little bit if it's like, hey, this is fine. We're doing good work here.
Yeah. Also, I think too, like what was really helpful for me in bringing that to the group was getting the feedback of sort of it. Like I pulled away a little with my own anxiety, and then in naming it and bringing it in again, it actually opened up more connection. So something about that feels like this really beautiful process of like, it's not actually maybe necessarily always about being able to like hold the uncertainty, but it's about sort of noticing when you go away and then sort of like being able to come back in a way that kind of builds a stronger bridge of connection. Like that the whole thing is sort of this like more fluid experience of sort of departing and returning and departing and returning.
Kind of paradoxically, the desire to control seems to want to be more helpful or connected, but it actually takes one out of connection.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of doing the opposite of what it wants to do. Yeah. So just maybe that's a little abstract, but it does seem true. Like the more we try to control any relationship, actually the more we're not really in the relationship and more in whatever our ideas are about what something should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like a really controlling relationship actually feels very unrelated in a certain way.
Yeah. Really disconnected.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I was thinking when you were talking about control is like there's an element of safety that comes with that, like even just like rules that we live by. When we kind of like live within these sort of structures and containers of, this is how you live,
Hmm.
that it can be kind of safe. It's like it's nice to know there's some kind of container that you can stay within that keeps you in a nice little contained bubble.
Right.
But there's the flip side of it that it can also become really rigid and controlling and like limit freedom and authenticity at the same time. I see all these different communities that have very like sort of, I mean, I come from a Christian background and there's a lot of rules. And those rules and morals and values, they can be really good and kind of like helpful. And then sometimes they like tamp down this like inner um,
Hmm.
something else. They tamp down something else. Um,
Yeah.
and um,
Yes.
and then I also notice it internally with people, like those rules or things can be internalized, and then it almost sort of limits and kind of turns into guilt. Like if you kind of stray from acting or behaving in a certain way, there's the like, you shouldn't do that part of you that also, which is controlling, tamps down this other form of life. I think is kind of like,
Hmm.
even if it's grief or even if it's anger, like those are really life-giving emotions that sometimes these like elements of control really minimize.
So well said. That's great. Yeah. Robert M. Pirsig, who wrote Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, he developed a philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not going to get into all the weeds, but basically he has a distinction between what he calls static quality and dynamic quality. Static quality is like being conservative about things that work well. The Constitution of the United States,
Mm-hmm.
static quality. It's a document that was written a few hundred years ago. Really great legal document. Let's keep it static,
Mm-hmm.
right? Dynamic quality is like ecstatic dance. You're just all over the place. You
Mm-hmm.
do whatever you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that he talks about there's an interplay between these. So if it's
Mm-hmm.
all static, if it's all conservative, no life can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's all just like blowing the lid off of everything, it's just chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this kind of interplay between these two, and I really like that framework. And so the way that I think of it is that the container itself can be a creative act.
Mm-hmm.
The container itself comes out of the experience of what is actually facilitating the inner life,
Like the
right? So
Constitution itself, the creation of it is what you're
is a
saying.
creative act.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then it creates a framework in which,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, American freedom can happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, which I think people take it for granted now, but most of human history was some kind of pretty repressive top-down power structure,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So there's this new container where it's like, wait, we can still have civilization and people can like follow their artistic and entrepreneurial interests,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think about this too with the container in therapy. The container is very simple. We meet at a certain time,
Mm-hmm.
you pay a certain fee,
Mm-hmm.
confidentiality, you can say whatever you want, there's no repercussions, there's no social repercussions. And in that container, which is very rigid, right? Like the confidentiality agreement is like full on,
Mm-hmm.
non-negotiable, like the most rigid thing you could possibly have.
Mm-hmm. And
But within that is a tremendous freedom.
yeah.
So I think that's cool. So that's what I think of when you were talking about your thing is like we want that life energy, but we also want to have like a safety and containment around it too,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't just want chaos. Like the really far wings of any political party tend towards chaos usually,
Mm-hmm.
tear everything down,
Mm-hmm.
anarchy, no structures,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they don't realize that those structures evolved for a reason
Yeah.
to contain things and make life workable. So
Yeah. Um, yeah, when you were talking, this is another theory thing, but I think it's Dan Siegel talks about like integration, like as a similar thing, like when we're kind of um, in that like sweet spot where we have that like flow and ease to our life. Um, that's a good thing. It's like a river; things flow naturally, and you can kind of ebb and course. But when we get stuck in on the banks, which is a little bit of like high stress in our lives, or um, being activated or triggered by traumatic moments in the past or whatever, we kind of get stuck in the banks of the river, and one side is chaos and the other side is rigidity, and
Mm-hmm.
each side is looking at the other side and kind of reacting.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my God, I don't want to become rigid, so I'll stay over here on this side. But
Yes.
actually, where the real freedom and ease is sort of in this middle zone, where you're
Mm-hmm.
both able to be um, able to hold your ground a little, which kind of draws in that kind of structure, but also have this freedom and ease to sort of be adaptable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The other thing that's popping into my head then is that the desire to control, which I think is the desire to say, hey, this is too chaotic. I'm a little freaked out. I don't know what to do. All that stuff that comes up, right? That desire to control, I think it seems to me that we are more aware of when other people are trying to control us than when we are trying to control them.
Yeah, totally.
Because internally we'll be in contact with that energy that's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey man, I'm trying to live and
Mm-hmm.
express myself,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and why are you trying to stop me?
Mm-hmm.
We have both of those impulses in ourselves, to control and to not be controlled.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think we're always going to be more aware when other people are trying to control us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
very true. Which is tricky in counseling because it's like a tricky dance, I think, a little bit in um, like when seeing clients, because they're there for your help and your expertise, and yet they're also at the same time rejecting any control. So it's a little bit of this very kind of nuanced relational dance, a little bit of like, um, and power kind of comes into it a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't have a clear thought on that, but that just popped into my head.
Yeah, so then we could talk about that. I mean, that could be a whole other conversation too, but that seems to me like, I think I've said this to you before, but the blind spot of the not just therapy, but any kind of like mentoring profession is
Mm-hmm.
that it doesn't seem to me like people are taking up the responsibility around their power. Many cases that they're not doing it at all, or at least not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's very common now for people to say, well, I have an anti-oppressive practice, so therefore power doesn't exist. As if you can just explain it away in a neat sort of way because you have an idea that there's no power dynamics, even though there actually are
Mm-hmm.
psychologically power dynamics
Mm-hmm.
always.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's these ways that people avoid that very thorny problem because it is hard, because there is a dance. You want to help people and use your psychological power, which you always have as a mentor,
Mm-hmm.
to try to move somebody forward in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also, to the extent you have power, it's like anything. It can be, electricity to power a home, or a weapon or whatever. Like I think of like a client who, let's say we're having some conversations and I feel like things are going very well. I feel like I'm being kind of gentle with it. But
Mm-hmm.
then maybe I find out a few weeks later that they were just kind of going along
Mm-hmm.
with my ideas and it wasn't really fitting so well, but they were afraid to say something
Mm-hmm.
or speak up. So
Mm-hmm.
they were kind of being really good actors at like
Mm-hmm.
going along with, and to me it was like, well, I'm making these suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like they like it, so we'll
Mm-hmm.
keep going. So there's a lot of like really subtle things where it's like just more and more nuanced refinement of tuning in. Is this person really with me or not? Because so often people will say yes when they really mean no. And that's part of what they need help with, is they don't know how to say no. Or they don't even realize they're going along with something or whatever. I wish the profession would embrace that this is a perpetual, never-ending, thorny problem that is so central to the work. That it's always there. That the work is to be aware of power dynamics and know you're not going to get it quite right, and that you have to continually revise, and you'll be surprised that you thought things were kind of okay, but then actually maybe they weren't so okay, and that sort of thing. So.
And also that almost like it's okay if it's not perfect, that there's something
Yes.
about even you not to like incredibly harmful degree, but like those like micro movements away can be really pivotal in terms of reorienting and with power, apologizing and making amends in a way that can be really
Yes.
liberating. And
Yes.
if you do it
Yes.
perfectly, you actually kind of lose an opportunity for some deeper therapeutic healing for someone. Not that it's about that, but like there's this way that you can kind of weave it um,
Yes.
in a way, not and it's like so minor. It's not like about going and having sex with a client. That's problematic. But it's like these like little minor ways of like, oh, I charged ahead of you there, like we're having this conversation, and oh, do you even want to talk about this?
Yes.
No, you don't.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Wow, I
Yes.
just charged ahead here. I'm really sorry. How do you feel about that? But I do struggle with it
Yeah.
because there's different lines within different professionals. Like some professionals will say they're coming to you. You're the expert. Just tell them what they need to do. Like what's the structure of therapy going to look like for them, and set that for them because that's what they want you to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's other people that are like, I want to give all power, all control to the client because that's going to be liberating for them. I think I feel like I'm in the middle a little bit um, where I want it to be collaborative and we can be in dialogue about where we're going. Almost like we're looking at a map together and sort of deciding the direction together. Um, but that's tricky. It makes me it makes me second guess myself sometimes. Like I wish I could just be like, this is what we're doing. It make me feel better. But I there's something in me that doesn't allow that. So
I really like this idea that it's an opportunity for relational repair. So I think so often, I mean, maybe the majority of people don't get particularly responsive parents or mentors, adults around them. And so when they're kids, they just think, oh, I've just got to stuff down my needs. I can't talk about anything. So I think you're exactly right that there's a spectrum, but it's like if you're trying to be perfect, which is impossible anyway, but if you're trying to be perfect, then there's no opportunity for repair. If you're really bad at what you do and you're not paying attention to power at all, you're going to be abusive. But there's a normal range in the middle, which is like we're fumbling around, but I'm still with you. I made that mistake. We'll figure it out. We'll repair it. We'll keep going. There's like these subterranean things that people get out of therapy that are more than just like, what's my solution to my problem? Do I take this job or not? Right? It's like having the experience of a responsive relationship that can evolve over time, where the other person actually cares about what's going on and wants to make it good. The other bullet point that I thought of was like, what I do like about this work, at least when people are interested in working in this way, not everybody is, but there's a very creative aspect to it. You're both in there dancing and trying to figure out where is this going to go. And when they're really open to that kind of journey, then it really is like, wait, how about this? And how about this? And oh, that was cool. And let's go a little more this way. And so it really is it feels a lot more like contact improv than a science or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I thought of in what you were saying was about this notion of the expert coming in and telling people what to do. That's where I start to really, that my hair stands up like a cat ready to fight, is this idea that someone would come in and tell somebody else how to live their lives. That's where my hard line is. I think that is such a massive failure of the therapy professions, and lots of people do that, and more, I think. I mean, I think that there's a place for it if it's like you go to a business coach and how do I do better web marketing?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, here's your 5-point plan. Okay, that's different, right? You're going there for like a specific like business service.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the psyche, I have a full hard line stop in terms of like telling clients what they should do. Particularly, I think that there's therapists out there, client would be like, should I stay with my partner or go? And they'll actually answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
It's so terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that betrays a fundamental misunderstanding of the complexity of the psyche. Because if you really understand the complexity of life, you know that you can't tell somebody else what to do.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't. You don't know enough about them. You never know enough about your clients to really make big determinations about what they should do or who they should be. We don't even know. Maybe they need to suffer more. Maybe they need to go through another terrible relationship first. Maybe that's their journey, actually. I almost think that therapy is impossible without spirituality. Because if you don't believe that there isn't something else guiding the process, or that there isn't some kind of almost ineffable journey or value that's happening in somebody's life, that's when control can really seep in. You shouldn't do this. This is a bad idea. I know better. I know what you need. But it's like we also learn through suffering. So like we are basically putting ourselves into the position of God if we are to say that this person doesn't need this dose of suffering for their journey to go forward or something like that. Like at an ultimate level, we just don't know. We just don't know what people need. We don't know. So often some catastrophic rupture is the wildfire that clears the brush and makes way for something new. We really don't know what the nature of the suffering is going to be for somebody. So that's where I think the control thing becomes really interesting, because like there is an ultimate way in which, I mean, even if we're doing little controlling things in little micro moments, the big picture I think needs to be control free as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. I agree, but it's funny because I do some work with like specific modalities that are very structured, and we'll use them as sort of like foundational, So it's actually they're so they're so structured and kind of rote and like almost unsatisfying to people. But in my mind, I'm like, well, this is like it's like learning to handwrite, or learning the alphabet so that you can write poetry. Like,
Yes,
so,
yes, yes. I agree with that. Yeah.
so in a way, it's like, yes, I totally agree with you, but I will actually say often, I think, a series of sessions where we just do this would be really helpful to just create like a baseline. And from there, they get access to themselves in a whole new way that you can kind of do more of this dance. But
Yes.
sometimes people are just
Yes.
not able to dance yet. Um,
Yes. Right.
and so then it does require more coaching, more like instruction, more structure. But the goal is not to stay within that structure. The goal isn't really just that. You don't learn the alphabet just to know the alphabet. It's you learn the
Yes.
alphabet so that you can do these creative things with the alphabet.
I love it. So well said. I love what you're saying there. I think that's perfect in terms of like what we're talking about the static and dynamic quality and having a container. So that's true. I guess it depends on what lens we're using. So like from the lens of like the broader life process, total hands off, don't tell people what to do. But in terms of like, it's like, to take the dance analogy, well, if the person is wounded and their ankle's broken, they need PT, right? And you need PT is like very directive. Okay, you move your ankle like this and then like this and then or whatever. So I think that that's also true for nervous systems that are wounded or boundary structures that are wounded or relational patterns. So, but I think even there, the awareness is that it's in service to their life energy rather than as an imposition onto their life energy. I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like is this helping them to kind of get back on their feet so that they're not panicking all the time or so that they're not, dissociated or, whatever. That just has such a different flavor from like, I'm the expert and of course you should do this. And like, I get to feel really powerful by controlling other people's lives and telling them what to do. And it's such a different flavor.
It is. And also I think when you talked about spirituality, I also thought, well, I don't know if it's spirituality or if it's like, there has to be in the profession of therapy, some degree of fostering and developing a relationship and a tolerance for suffering.
Yes.
And that could be spiritual, but it could not be spiritual. It could be seen as spiritual, but also it could just be semantics. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but I think undergirding
it's so good.
That
it's so good. Yeah, I love it.
Actually just how do we relate to pain and suffering?
Yes.
And so often counselors go into it to sort of ease pain and suffering, like to go to help people to get away from suffering. And actually, maybe that's actually, like this, it causes more suffering in a way, because it's like the avoidance of suffering is suffering.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is where I love this conversation. I mean, it's funny because I think you and I come from like polar opposite backgrounds. I think you had let's say a rather Christian background, and mine was a rather like no container at all religious background.
So we were on opposite sides of the banks. You were in chaos. I was in rigidity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I would have ran for the hills from you, probably.
Yeah. So, and it was just how I was raised, it just wasn't part of my life. But, so here's my thought. Okay, this is just a little pet theory that I have right now, but my new hypothesis is that if humans do not have some kind of spiritual foundation, and what I mean by that isn't necessarily believing in a particular thing, but that if they don't have answers to fundamental questions like, why is there suffering? Why do bad things happen to good people? Why can't I realize my hopes and dreams even though I'm trying so hard? Why don't I have more power in my life? Whatever. The questions that religions typically would answer, to put it succinctly, it's God's will. Right? I think if somebody doesn't have some version of it's God's will, God will become them. They will because they need something to fill that vacuum. That's what I get curious about. So for me, I'll just name my solution to this. That's a sort of like spiritual secular version, I guess. The way that I think about it is that I'm not in control and the client isn't in control either. So this idea of client self-determination, I actually think is also flawed, which is kind of radical sounding when I say it. The client's unconscious is the one that's really in control. The client's wholeness, the client's soul. So I might want it to go a certain way. The client might want it to go a certain way, but their dreams are telling us we're both wrong or something. So I think that for me is where I orient to. There's like an other, a bigger container, a bigger movement in life, and that my job is to attune to that. If you're religious, you might say the God within each person. If you're not religious, you might think of complexity theory and we all have 50 trillion cells and so we're all unique, or whatever, DNA, whatever. That's a less satisfying and much less fun explanation than having a soul, but to each their own.
I think what I this brings up for me is just like how important it is to tune into and grow in your own awareness as you work with people. What's motivating you in a given moment? Are you
Mm-hmm.
pulling away from someone for some reason? Are you leaning in? Yeah, these are so subtle. Like all of this is so subtle, and it takes
Yes.
so long to actually grow in your own capacity to even notice all these things. Um,
Yes.
so, yeah, I mean, I say this now and I feel like I'm learning. Like I just had that conversation with that group last week, and it's this continual noticing of what happens with me. So it's kind of exciting, I guess, like being in this work actually propels me a lot in my own growth and sort of process.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. Again, I think of body movement, let's say dance, for
Hmm.
example,
Hmm.
that what really holds my attention is the ever increasing refinement and subtlety.
Mm. Hmm.
That so when you said that it's so subtle, like that really resonates with me, and I feel like that is the antidote to abuse of power,
Hmm.
is a lifelong commitment to subtlety. Because the more subtle you get, it becomes at a certain point impossible to have like really egregious abuses
Hmm.
because you're just paying attention too much. You couldn't even go there.
Hmm.
You know, you
Hmm.
might make a bunch of little mistakes, but it's, I think, in learning to pay attention to all those little subtle mistakes that you
Hmm.
actually get really good.
Hmm.
So, so that's what engages me. And I think, I guess I wish that people, like, I wish someone would have told me when I was 15, there's so much subtlety that you can learn about yourself. You can start right now. Nobody told me that when I was younger. Like, I had to discover it.
Hmm.
But, like, that's what's so interesting
Hmm.
about life is all of these little nuanced
Yeah.
things, and it's different from processing everything too.
Yeah.
It's different from like this overly like analyzing everything and having a theory for everything. It's much more like it, when done well, it does feel like a dance where it's like we're constantly refining, but we're just doing something together, and it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like we're applying some theories out of a book or something.
Well, I was going to say, what if somebody told me that when I was 15, subtlety? I would have been like,
Okay,
fuck off.
maybe 20.
Like, I don't
Yeah.
want subtlety. I just want to be like, so it's almost developmental. Like the more you kind of go
Yeah,
into it, the more you sort of like ease into the like minutia. Um,
that's true. That's true. It's this might just be my own personality thing though too, because in the movement I was doing, even when I was like 12 or 13, I was like practicing like dialing and refining things
mm-hmm,
like as smoothly as possible. Like
mm-hmm.
so like I was already really into that even like
Okay, I
as a
was
kid.
not.
Yeah, okay. So I
Go
think I have a
big or
somewhat
go
obsessive.
home.
Yeah, yeah. I might be somewhat obsessive, so that
Mm,
might be part of it. But
mm. Well, that's a good thing
um
then.
yeah. Yeah, this makes me happy. This makes me happy. It feels like because you kind of there's an extremist part of me that's like expertise always bad, and I think that impulse is the part in me that's like, hey, let me have my life energy. Stop trying to control me,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Yeah.
I can also think of times where like with legitimate like capital T trauma, where I'm working with a practitioner and I'm like, I want to tell you all the things. And she's like, no, you're going to slow down and notice your feet on the ground right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like mad at her for telling me that, but I know that's what I need,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So there's like, it really is. So the real takeaway is that like, it's always paying attention to what's happening in the present,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always changing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very nuanced, and you always have to keep learning. And
Yeah, the
yeah.
more that you tune into those subtleties within yourself too, the more that it gets easier to tune into the subtleties of other people too. So
Yes.
that's really also kind of um, helpful.
Yes.
And I don't know how to learn, like, I don't know how you get trained in that as like a new therapist, but really it's like the more you don't really learn how to be in relationship with people and how
Hmm.
hard that is.
Hmm. Hmm.
But that's essentially the therapy. That's the work
Yes.
that is
Yes.
healing and restorative and rejuvenating. And
Yes.
it's complicated.
Yes.
Hmm.
I know you got to go in a second, but
Hmm.
I'm just imagining, like, what if a younger, newer clinician is watching this, and like, how do you train in this? And I think the way is to spend time with, surround yourself with people with this kind of relationship to life.
Hmm.
Your mentors,
Hmm.
colleagues, like people that are really in on the journey. You're not going to learn it at school.
Hmm.
You're probably not even going to learn all that much at like even like a cool alternative training or something in this regard. Like this nuanced stuff really comes from like day in and day out, hour after hour,
Hmm.
paying attention.
Hmm.
Like it is a lifelong training. And if you have people that are kind of holding you in that space, that's like, you know, like people
Yeah.
that are challenging you to stay there, I
Hmm.
guess, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. There's no, yeah, I was going to say it's like why we get drawn to certain communities and spiritual practices, and then sometimes those kind of like ebb away a little too. Like it's looking for all the little spaces around us where there's that like life energy bubbling up, knowing that
yes.
it'll shift and morph and be in different places over time. I
Hmm.
think,
Hmm.
yeah.
Cool. Well, maybe we could potentially bookmark a conversation more about like the spiritual or religious aspects of
Hmm.
practice or like how that relates,
Yeah.
right? Because that's also interesting to me too.
Yeah,
Like
it is to
what
me
are
too.
the philosophical foundations of what we're doing?
Yeah.
Because that's also not really talked about. It's usually just like brain chemistry problems or something. Like
Hmm.
it's a really thin philosophical foundation
Hmm.
that's taught in schools.
Yeah. Okay, I have to go because I'm
Yeah.
going to be late.
Okay, thanks for coming.